We're here for our very last talk of the workshop, but there is reception afterwards, don't forget about that. So we're very happy to have Rajiv Gandhi from Rutgers-Camden tell us from potential to promise, developing scholars one Eureka moment at a time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. So I am a full-time faculty at Rutgers University at Camden, and I also teach at the University of Pennsylvania. This talk is about the stories of various students whom I worked with over the last approximately 20 years, who despite many odds have had amazing success. And we can discuss about the challenges we faced and the methods that were used. So let me start by giving you a brief background about Rutgers University-Camden. It's mainly a four-year college, and students who attend the college are mainly from South Jersey, right? South Jersey is very close to Philadelphia. A large fraction of our students hold jobs, so most of them are working and while they are studying, and it's a non-residential campus. So unlike a place like Princeton or most places that you may know, where students are residential, most of our undergraduate population, they are staying at home, they are working, they have full-time jobs, and in a way, studying is like a part-time activity. Yeah. Many students transfer from community colleges because that's a cheaper option. You do 2 years at a community college and then you transfer, that way you don't pay much. And there is a very small window of time during which you can have an impact, because by the time they come to Rutgers-Camden, they are already juniors, right? So if you want to have any impact, you have at most 2 years. And it's actually not even 2 years, because they don't come from a sound financial background. So any job that they get even after 1 year, let's say Walmart were to offer them a job, they would actually take it up, right? So you actually have a small window of time. Also, because when they come, it takes some time to get to know them. So it may take a semester or so for me to get to know them, or any faculty to get to know them, after which there is very little time. So it's a very small window of time during which you can have an impact. And that is the time, if you want to have any impact, that is when you have to do things. And not many students, as a result, from the computer science department ever went to graduate school. So the department started around mid-90s, and until 2010, no student ever went to graduate school. Yeah. To give you a brief background, this is a personal statement written by one of my students when they applied for summer internship. Right? This will give you a sense of the background of many of our students. In high school, I did not care for education and felt it didn't care for me. Senior year in high school, I did not know what was going to happen. I had only applied to one college, Rutgers-Camden, the school closest to my home, and had plans on joining the armed forces like 3 of my siblings if I was not accepted. I only applied because in our country, college is what everyone does after high school, since almost any job now requires a college education. I got admitted to Rutgers-Camden, but I had no idea what I was doing there and barely coasted through courses. I felt like I had no future. And many of our students have similar backgrounds. I joined Rutgers-Camden in 2003, and what I realized is, when I started teaching, is that the students lack confidence in themselves. So if I were to tell a student that, look, you can do just as good as your peer at any other brand name institution, they would not believe that. I would tell them, look, what is your goal? They would say, I want to join XYZ company. I said, sure, we can make that happen. They would not believe, because they just didn't believe such a thing was possible. I would talk to the faculty that, look, our students are just as good as anybody else, and we need to work together towards the success. My colleagues would not believe me, because they say, look, we've been here for many years. We have tried, nothing happens. Just focus on your research, on your research, shut your door, and that is what will give you tenure and so on. But I had some very bright students in my class, and I was at a loss what I can do for them. So in the beginning, what I would tell my students is, this is not the right place for you. Just go somewhere else. Right. So, I thought I was doing a good job, because I'm trying to help my student get better opportunities. So some students transferred to Michigan, Penn, and Rutgers, New Brunswick, but there were very few of them. Until 2006, 2007, when I met Brad Greening. Brad Greening was a student in the Math Foundations of Computer Science course that I was teaching at Rutgers-Camden. I told Brad, Brad was doing quite well in the course. So I called Brad to my office and I told Brad, look, you may want to go to some other place. You have a better future than to be at Rutgers, New Brunswick. Rutgers-Camden. And Brad said, look, moving to another university is not an option for me. I have some obligations, financial obligations, and I'm doing very well in my courses. I don't see any need to move. So, and at that time he had a job at Comcast making $35,000 a year as a customer sales representative. So he didn't see any need to move. He just wanted to graduate and continue his job at Comcast. So, to inspire him, I invited him to do research with me in summer of 2007. But, there had to be some incentives. So I applied for the Dean's Research Scholarship, which was, I believe, about $300 or $400 that the Dean awarded for any student participating in the program. Brad was one of them. Brad got awarded that scholarship, which everybody likes to receive an award. He was quite happy. He said, "Sure, let's start working together." And summer started. Brad started coming, but within a few weeks he actually disappeared. He also stopped returning my emails. And fall semester came. I saw Brad in the hallway. I remember it was, I think, the first or the second day I saw Brad in the hallway. He saw me. He went in the other direction. I chased him down and I said, we need to talk in my office. And I remember him saying, "Look, Rajiv, I have another class now." I said, "Forget your class. You're coming to my office." And Brad came to my office. And I told Brad that, "Look, I need to write a report to the dean." Yes, I had to, but I could have written anything. That was not that big a deal. But I wanted him to realize that that was his responsibility. And I said, what should I write now? You have done nothing. And he was a customer sales representative. He very politely. I mean, I was very upset, but he was very calm. And he said, "What can we do to fix it?" So, and at that time, there was this book lying on my shelf, Proofs That Really Count, The Art of Combinatorial Proofs. There was the entire book on bijection proofs. And I wanted to read this book. It seemed like an interesting read. And I said, "Look, I have this book. I want you to read this. Every week you are coming to my office and presenting me this proofs." And he said, "Sure, I will do that." And that fall semester, every week, Brad would come, bring his index cards, very neatly written. He had really great writing, and he would explain to me. By the end of the semester, he had really taught me a lot of elegant results on this bijection proofs. And I told him at that time, "Look, I think you should prepare a talk and give it in the department colloquium." And he was very shocked. He said, "And who will be the audience?" I said, "The audience will be the faculty." And I said, "I don't think they know this, I don't think they know all these results, so I think you should talk." And he was a bit surprised. And I did not inform actually the faculty right away. We prepared the talk. We went through it many times, probably did 10 to 15 recitation before he went in front of the faculty. And just 2 weeks before, I announced that our own student will be giving a talk. This is the first time ever in our department colloquium that an undergrad student was giving a talk. He gave outstanding presentations in our department colloquium. I got this email from one of my colleagues. I had him in my class a few years ago, and based on that, I would never have guessed he'd be capable of the seminar talk he gave a few weeks back. We've obviously been very good for him. And at that time, I realized, talking to Brad, I realized he didn't have much exposure outside of South Jersey. And so I thought, I should take him to some other places. So, I contacted people at Maryland because I did my PhD there. They accommodated him to give a talk in the theory seminar series. Brad went there and gave a talk. Around that time, the summer internship flyers were coming out. And, I told Brad, "Look, I really want you to get a summer internship and I'm willing to champion your case. But, you first have to quit your job at Comcast." And he said, "Why do you want me to quit your job?" I said, "For multiple reasons. First is, I don't want what you did to me last summer happen to somebody else. That is, you start and then you disappear. And secondly, I also saw that his grades were slipping a bit. And I said, "Look, that's not done. You really need to focus on your studies." And, when I first told Brad, again, he was an extremely polite guy. And he said, look, Rajiv, I think that's going to be difficult." And I said, "Why don't you think about it and let me know?" I remember him coming. Still, the scene is very vivid in front of eyes. He walked in my door with a small face. He was red, sat down, calmly sat down, didn't say much. And he just said, "I don't think it is going to happen." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, look, Rajiv, when I'm in your office, when you're talking to me, I'm completely convinced with everything what you have to say. But when I leave your office and I talk to my friends and family, they think I'm crazy to follow what you're trying to tell me. I mean, to go to grad school and so on. When I have such a bright career, I can get a job and, make money and so on. So I told him, I said, look, how much money do you need to just survive month by month? And I remember taking out a piece of paper, writing down, doing the calculation. It was coming to about $500. And I just wanted to inspire some student to do something good for them, what I thought was good for them. It may not have been in absolute terms, but what I thought was good for them. And I said, okay, look, I'll take care of the $500. And he said, how? I said, I'll pay you and we can figure it out later. You can pay me when you make money and so on. He said, no, I can't do that. That's not going to happen. I said, okay, we'll figure out some way of doing it. For now, why don't you just think through this again, give one last shot at it and let me know. And I was pretty sure that he would say that, I would not do it. And then I got this email in January 2008. As you see, the subject was decision. And I would say this was probably one of the most significant emails in my working career, where Brad, as you see, it was a pretty important email. He writes, dear Rajiv, I would like to try to go for it. Again, you can sense the tentativeness in the tone of his email. As per our discussion, I figure even if things do not work out with the work we will have done, plus the plan to do the data structures work, I will well be able to get another very possibly better job should the worst case happen. Again, you can see the negative mindset, right? He's pretty convinced things are not going to work out with Gandhi, right? Should the worst case happen. By my figures, a lower bound of $550 per month would allow me to pay my parents their money. By that time, I had been at Rutgers-Camden for 5 years, and I thought I knew my students' background, but I didn't. I didn't realize that our students were so challenged that they even had to pay rent to their parents because of the circumstances they were in, right? Their money plus pay my car insurance and so on. And if tutoring cannot fill this, blah, blah, blah. Right? So this was the email that I got, and which was, pretty significant. And I remember asking Brad afterwards, I said, what transpired? What transpired that you sent me this email? He said, Rajiv, when I actually sat down to write this email, I was going to write to you that I cannot do this. And I'm going to have a job and I don't want a summer internship. So, but he said, I was so torn and I was tired of thinking I was to go back and forth that finally I just wrote this and I hit enter. And, I don't know how many times such things happen in life, but that was probably one of the best things, as you will see soon. He worked with Professor Nina Pfefferman at Rutgers, New Brunswick, as research experience for undergrad, as part of the research experience for undergraduates program. And he eventually did his PhD with Professor Nina Pfefferman, and now he's doing very well in his career. So that was Brad. Now, 2008, 2009, lot of interesting things happened. I first got NSF funding. Now, why was this important? So I joined in 2003, at which time, like every other professor, I wrote my first NSF proposal. Spent a lot of time and energy. What I thought was a well thought out proposal, it got rejected. Not surprising. It's a very competitive process. Process and so on. And I didn't quite enjoy the process of writing a proposal. And I was told that, look, it's important for your tenure, so you should write proposal. So after that, I would just recycle the same proposal, send it again, because I was told that you at least need to show that you tried. So I just kept sending the same proposal. It kept getting rejected. Then one day, I remember there was a student called Tim Frick in my class, pretty amazing student, I thought. I called him to my office and I told him the same thing what I used to tell other students, you should go somewhere else. And Tim thought I was crazy, and I could just see he would avoid me after that. And I remember once that I'd asked students to slip their assignments under my door, and most times students, and there was a window on my door, most students would come and slip, but he saw that I was in my office, he just slipped it and he ran away. So I could see that he was avoiding me, but and I realized that. And I remember asking Tim, I said, why would you not work with me? He said, look, Subaru is offering me $14 an hour to do a job. You are paying me nothing because I didn't have any funding. So he said, I want to join Subaru and eventually have a career there. And I said, what are you going to do at Subaru? He said, oh, I'm going to do data entry and so on. And I said, look, there is no future here. I don't think you should do that. You should just invest some time here. And he said, no, I don't think I can do that. And I was very frustrated that I could not do something good what I thought was good for a student. And at that time I was frustrated. I said, why am I in academia? I should have just continued in industry. I had a background in industry. And I remember going home early, slept. Next morning, I'm walking from the train station to my office. I'm again angry. I don't know at whom, but I'm just talking to myself and walking to my office. I said, and at that time I'm saying, why NSF talks about supporting underprivileged population, why doesn't they give me little money so I can help my student? I can beat the $14 an hour to Subaru's offer. And I called up so I went to my office. I went to nsf.gov. I picked a random name and I just called them up. And the first thing I said, please do not hang up. and I just started talking fast because I thought they would hang up. And I said, I just need little money to support my students. And I started talking and I said, I've sent proposals, I get rejected, but Rutgers-Camden is this. And then I spoke a little bit and then the person had not hung up. And then they said, are you done? I said, yes. And then they said, have you sent NSF proposal? I said, yes, I had sent, but I got rejected. They said, call us in a week if you don't hear from us. And I hung up. In a few days, I get a call saying that to fund a proposal, we need a proposal, so please send a proposal. That is when I sent my first proposal and I got my first $30,000 award. And after that, there was no looking back. That money was enough to support my students. And that is how the first support started. So anyway, so NSF funding was very crucial for me because that is the only way I could keep my students. I could support them so they can focus on their education. Anyway, as I said in the beginning, it was very hard to convince my colleagues that our students are just as good. And I was tired of trying to convince them. So I realized that's a losing battle. Then I thought, okay, everything has consequences, right? Good and bad. So I said, what is the good thing that comes out of that? I said, oh, okay. So I think the other courses are not as challenging what I think as how challenging they should be. What that means is my students are not spending enough time on those classes. So I can increase the workload in my classes. So I doubled the workload in my class. I essentially, when I would tell my colleagues that my students are just as good as student anywhere, my colleagues would not believe me. Then I started asking myself, am I fooling myself just because I love my students? And I said, let me check. So I would go to MIT, go to Berkeley, what they would give for a week, I would sometimes just give them 4 or 5 days because I would have assignment released every class during the next class. So an assignment due on Monday is due on Wednesday, assignment due on Wednesday is due on Monday. Now, one thing about Rutgers-Camden students, they are very passive. They don't complain about anything. And that is where I lucked out. That I first thought that there would be riots, but there were no riots. And what was good about this was the core course in computer science. If they wanted to do anything after that, they had to pass this class. So I basically did this. And also what I requested my chair, I said, because I'm creating this course, I want to teach for the next 3 semesters. So that way a student cannot say, oh, you know what? Gandhi is teaching this semester, let me drop the class, let me take this next semester. Well, next 3 semesters, Gandhi is going to So as a result, what happened was that students, they were maybe not happy with me, but they had to do it. But in the process, they started doing well. And, to me, I realized how good my students were. And I could now confidently say, look, this was the same assignment given at MIT that my students were able to do or not do or whatever, but I had a pretty accurate measure of where my students were. Now, I remember Tom DeHart walking in my office and Tom said, Rajiv, I've just stopped by to say thanks for all the teaching you have done. I'm going to graduate next semester. I said, graduate and do what? And he said, look for a job. And I said, if I were them, I would not give you a job. And just imagine a student who's a senior coming to you and you say you would not give them a job. Again, he quietly listened. He said, what do you suggest I do? I said, don't graduate. Let's go back to the freshman year. Let's take some of the key classes again that I teach. I just felt confident that if they take my classes and I think they do well, I can champion their case. Because I didn't have confidence in some of the other courses that were taught. And to my complete surprise, Tom DeHart said, sure, I will do that. And he took my classes that I was teaching that fall and in the spring. And at that time, I remember telling him, if you do well in my class, your success is my responsibility. I don't know how I made such statement, but I did make that statement. and Tom actually did everything. And there was another student, James Davis. James Davis, so the story is there was a student called Nicole in my class, in the Math Foundations class. And, my classes are generally very interactive. And I would ask questions. Sometimes Nicole would answer correctly, sometimes not correctly, which is completely fine, but her homeworks were perfect. So I called Nicole, I said, what's going on? Your homework seemed to be very good. He said, oh, I have a friend who's a math whiz. And he said, he helps me. So I said, oh, if he's doing so much work for you, why don't you just tell him to take my course? He said, oh, he's a senior and, he would find this easy. I said, don't worry about that. Making a course challenging is always easy. and I just said that, we parted ways. Complete surprise. Next class, James Davis walks in. And I called James, yeah, he was good, but and I called James to my office, and James had his own style. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, oh, I already have a job, right? I remember him saying exactly this way. And I said, okay, job where? He said, oh, I'm going to be working at ShopRite. ShopRite, by the way, people who don't know, is a grocery chain in New Jersey. And I said, as what? He said, oh, I've been working in the prepared foods department since high school, and that's where I'm going to be. So I said, okay, can ShopRite wait for some time? He said, oh, I can get into ShopRite anytime. I said, would you consider working with me? He said, okay, I'll give you a semester and then I can go to ShopRite. I said, thank you. And that's how James and I started working. And now what happened is, now I realized that, look, I am not able to convince my own colleagues that our students are very good. I am telling my students apply to grad school. When they apply to grad school, how am I going to convince these people in grad admissions that our students are very good? Because all said and done, academicians do love the pedigree and the schools, the brand name schools and so on. So I then ask myself, what is it that other students and other undergraduate institutions don't do that maybe my students can do? And I realized that at least at that time, not too many undergrads were doing research. It has increased over the years, but at that time. So then what I did was I introduced a class where I would have a few students and I would just do research. I would do advanced topics in computer science. So, right, I picked my area, approximation algorithm, then I started teaching them. Students said they didn't want exams. That's fine. My condition was that at any time in the semester, I may ask you to come on the board and teach what we did, maybe even 10 classes later, you have to be able to present it. Basically, I wanted to teach them how to think about problems, how to study and so on. And so that went on for the entire semester. And it was, I thought, very successful. And in the following semester, every single talk in the department colloquium was given by my undergraduate students on cutting edge research topics, and presentations were done very well. This I don't think happens anywhere where the entire colloquium is run by undergraduate students. I started getting emails from top institutions, grad students emailing saying, oh, I saw this talk. I have a talk to give in my grad class. Is it okay if I use the slides? And that's when I realized that, my students are doing a good job. Now, what amazing thing happened is Brad Greening, whose email you saw, gets admitted into a PhD program at Rutgers. This is big because this was the first student from our department to get into a PhD program. Several other students whom I worked with got research experience for undergrads or internships and did well, except Tom DeHart, the student whom I said, your success is my responsibility. Now, Tom had done everything I told him to, but I failed to deliver. He applied to many REUs and internships. He got rejected everywhere. I asked him what would be your top choice. He said, I would have liked to work in the human-computer interaction area at Virginia Tech, because they have a good human-computer interaction area. Now, because he had got rejected everywhere, I emailed people at Virginia saying, would you give Tom DeHart a chance? I did not get an email for a few weeks. Tom comes to my office again. Just imagine, okay, this is the professor who had told him, equivalent to you are no good, nobody will give you a job, your success is my responsibility. Now this professor doesn't deliver, right? He's still very, very polite, very nice. And he says, the good thing at that time was I had NSF funding, so I knew I could support him. So money was not an issue, but his interest and my interest did not match. He came again. I remember swiveling in my chair. I wrote another email to Virginia Tech folks saying that, look, I have the money. You don't need to pay the money. Can you please let me know if you can come? And I got an email within 5 minutes saying, only if you can pay, because we have run out of funds and, we can give him a dorm room and a place in my lab. That's it. And that's it. Tom DeHart went to Virginia Tech and did well. I started getting these emails the following after the summer. Josh Wetzel, who went to the University of Maryland to do research in bioinformatics. I got this email. Josh was fabulous. We got a poster and oral presentation in the WABI, that's Workshop for Algorithms in Bioinformatics. Workshop based on his work, and are now working on a journal paper. I've tried to get him to apply to Maryland for grad school, but he's got some family issues that would probably keep him out of school for a few years. I'll try to keep in touch and hopefully lure him here. Tom DeHart is the same student who got rejected at every place. He gets this email from his mentor, one of his mentors, not at Virginia Tech though. I have enjoyed working with you on this project. Kathy mentioned you were submitting applications for graduate school. I hope you will consider applying to University of Wisconsin. We are a well-funded program, highly ranked, and may have many opportunities to research. Please let me know if you have any questions about our program, if you're interested in visiting. So the word had spread. He had done some work with this person at University of Wisconsin, and now they all wanted him to apply to grad school. Tom gets this email from the department chair at Virginia Tech. You may recall that we met during a summer research project at Virginia Tech. I heard you are applying for grad admission here. I wanted to encourage you to apply and also share with you sometime more information about our work on usable security and so on. So there's the same student who was rejected just a couple of months before he receives these emails from everywhere. Now people are trying to have him apply to the graduate programs. James Davis, the person who was going to work at ShopRite, he continued working with me because he was interested in theoretical computer science, which is my area. He gave very nice presentations at other universities, and I get this email from my colleagues at other universities. Thanks, Rajiv. It was good to see both you and your maturing student, James. It is really nice that these guys can understand such key research papers, right? So this is how our students, people started knowing our students as to, that these are some of really good students. 4 more students now get accepted to graduate programs. We had James Davis go to Cornell, Dan Allen go to Dartmouth, Josh Wetzel came to Princeton, and Tom DeHart went to Virginia Tech. Now more students want to pursue academics. I get emails such as this. Professor, I quit my job and I'm ready for any challenge you have to offer. There was a time when I used to chase students. Now I didn't have a problem that, students wanted to work with me. So I also get emails such as this. It's Nick from your 171 and 213 courses. I'm graduating this semester and I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for the courses you taught me. I may not have been your best student, but I definitely learned a lot from your courses, and I thank you for making us all work hard to learn. Keep up your teaching methods, they work well. So this is when I realized that, students like challenge, right? So the 2 homeworks per week that I started long ago has still remained. And, we give, and, people actually look forward to. So these are the kind of emails that tells me that, okay, maybe I should continue that, because during the semester, people struggle and they may not like it, but afterward they see the benefits of that. And this is an email from a student that I received about a year ago. Professor, bottom line is very simple. I want to get into one of these top institutions where the atmosphere allows me to strive for more. I wouldn't mind getting some more research under my wing and applying for a great PhD program. I'm into work, really. And I don't expect Princeton or Columbia or any of these top universities to be easy to get into. And I want to put in the work. Yes, will be giving my best each day. Thank you yet again. I can't explain how things were, how different things were just a year ago. It's insane. So let me give you some background so you can appreciate this email. So this is a student I met in India. I used to travel a lot to India to spot the diamonds in the rough and bring them here. At that time, I was teaching to a few students, and this student walks in, and after the lecture, I talked to him. He was a teenager, and he thought he knew a lot, but he didn't know much. I talked to him at the end of the class, and he asked me if I'm going to teach, and he said, I'm not sure if I want to come. I said, that's fine. He had just come for trial or whatever. And then he goes away, and then he comes back again, and he said, no, I will continue with this. And I said, okay. Few days later, he tells that my parents want to meet. And I said, okay. And, his parents come and his dad asked me, he said, what do you think about my son? And I told him in these words, I said, your son thinks he knows a lot, but he really doesn't know much. And I said, high schoolers in America know more than your son. And he was at that time an undergraduate student. To a lot of credit to his parents, they listened to me and they asked me, they said, what do you think is the best course of action for him? And I told him, I said, the best thing that he can do is actually quit college, go back and strengthen the foundations of high school. And I said, if need be, I can suggest you what material that he should study. And I said, if things work out, then we can think of the next steps. And his parents said, we'll think about it. They came back a few days later. To my complete shock, they said, okay, this student is out of college, it's your responsibility. And my heart missed a beat. I said, oh my God, somebody really followed us. Now, since then, I started working with him. And initially, I was very scared because, this is like somebody has quit college. He's actually quit college. He stopped going to college. I better deliver now, right? And I started working with them and I realized that, teenage boys and, they have attitude and so on. And, I thought, okay, let me try to get him into Rutgers, New Brunswick, which is a pretty good school and he can graduate from there, get a job and life is good. So I tried Rutgers, New Brunswick, he got rejected. And I realized, oh my God, I talked to our dean. I said, because then the only option was Rutgers-Camden. He came to Rutgers-Camden. I remember him coming around mid-January. At that time, I was teaching a course at Penn, data structures and algorithms. He comes probably around January 9th or so, around 13th, the course was starting. He comes into at Penn class. Within 2 weeks, I could see the student's attitude was different. I don't know what happened, whether he was among 250 students, he saw how good the rest of the crowd was or how motivated they were, let's put it that way. And he started working hard. And the transformation that I started seeing in him week after week after week. Did he do exceptionally well in the course? No. But he showed me enough spark for me to say, I want to work with the student as long as I can. And that is when, I started working with him very, very closely. And he's now a PhD student at UT Austin, doing quite well. To give you an idea, so these are the trajectory snapshots of a small sample of our students. James Davis, this is the person who was talking about working at ShopRite. His high school GPA was so low that Rutgers-Camden actually rejected, right? And our admission bar is not very high. He planned to work at ShopRite, his employer, after high school. He quits his job in early 2009, starts graduate studies at Cornell in 2010. He's a recipient of the prestigious NSF Graduate Research Fellowship. Finishes his PhD in 2015, and his first job was an assistant professor at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Brad Greening, who was the first one to go for PhD, is currently a research scientist at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. And Robert McDavid, whose email, whose personal statement you read in the second slide, is a graduate student at Princeton University. I can go on and on. I've worked with many students. In fact, there are many more than this. And I can tell amazing stories about almost each of them, because each of my students, they all come they come with very diverse backgrounds and very, very interesting backgrounds, interesting in a very positive way. Let me just give you one example of Chris Rees in the second last row. So Chris Rees was in my class at Rutgers-Camden, and initially I thought of him as a problem student. He would not attend classes, not do well, and so on. And, and then, he probably failed some class or whatever, and then he disappeared. A few years later, to my complete surprise, I'm teaching a class and Chris Rees walks in. And I'm like, oh my God. And after the class, I call Chris. I say, what's going on? He said, look, I've done a lot of crazy things as a teenager, but, I want to prove myself. This is just for myself that, I can do just as well. And I want to take all your challenging classes. And that's why I'm here. I'm so touched that I told him the same thing that I told Tom, that your success is my responsibility if you work hard. And Chris did very well. He started, I could just see the transformation, did very well for 1 year. And I told him, look, apply for the internships. We'll try to get you the best internships. Now, I remember that, so I used to meet some of my students on Saturdays or something. I told him once, Chris, let's meet on a Saturday because I want to do some work with him. And he told me I can't meet this Saturday. And I got a bit upset. I said, look, I'm taking out my time to meet with you on Saturday. And you tell me you can't meet me on a Saturday. I said, why can't you meet me on a Saturday? So he said, oh, I have to, this is how I make my money. I said, what do you mean you make your money? So how do you make your money? So he said, oh, I repair sports cars. I didn't know anything about it. And he said, look, I am one of the few experts in New Jersey to repair sports cars, and I get paid a lot per hour to do that. And he explained, and I asked him, I said, how did you learn this? And he said, oh, I learned it on my own. He said, this was always my interest. I mean, to me, somebody who can do this thing on their own clearly is much smarter than what I am, right? And, you know, I said, okay, that's pretty amazing. Now, he applied for internships, just like how Tom Diard and others did, and he got rejected everywhere. But I won't blame anyone, because if you open Chris Ree's transcripts, it's like difficult to spot a passing grade. It's like pages after pages of F's. It's like, you know, he comes to a semester, then drops the semester, he gets all F's and so on. But, you know, I knew that the guy was very good. All he needed was one chance. And I asked him again, what is your top choice? He said, I want to go to University of Southern California and work with Professor Ramesh Govindan. I wrote to Ramesh, and Ramesh took him. And I told him at that time, I said, don't keep him free, because otherwise that's a problem. Keep him super busy. And Ramesh kept him busy. And Ramesh at that time, this is again, nature's intervention. Ramesh was working on a project with sensor networks with cars. And cars is what Chris is an expert in. And at the end of the summer, I got an email from Ramesh. Chris must have told you about his census paper. Please encourage him to apply to grad school. Yeah. Brian Bruback, let me tell you a story about Brian Bruback. Brian Bruback and I met when he was 28 years old. He was married. He was in my math foundations class. He had a background in cinema, had no background in computer science. It was just in my class. I thought within a month, the guy is very good. He has very natural ability to solve problems. I called him to my office and I said, I think you should consider PhD. And Brad said, look, you know, that may be difficult. I'm already married and I have some other challenges and so on. I said, of course, I understand. But I said, if it interests you, let me know. A week later, he comes and he says, my wife and I have talked and I think I want to go for a PhD. That's how things started. Long story short, he graduated from Rutgers-Camden, went to University of Maryland, and now is faculty at the Wellesley College. And, you know, my students get very good reviews or feedback. This is a student who did their PhD at Brown. This is the feedback that they got after the first year. You are in good standing, which is the top level. Your advisor and other faculty members have noted that you are doing great work and they're excited by the research you're doing. You're a superstar when it comes to research productivity. Your technical understanding and ability to implement models from scratch is truly remarkable. You're extremely ambitious and you should continue to be that way, blah, 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 right? I also get emails such as this. One of the things that is very unusual about the students that you propel forward is their research maturity. The thing about Krishna is that he actually understands what research is. I think he's been a super fit in our group. It occurs to me that it might be good to introduce you to the cluster of incoming faculty. I think they are all going to be looking for students and they all are super energetic. Would you mind if I write an email connecting all of you? So this was fantastic for my students because now my students are getting exposure to faculty pretty much all over. This is again an email I get from a faculty at other schools saying, just want to say thanks for recommending Jenny. I am very glad I made room for her in my lab this summer because she has done an outstanding job, probably the best RU student I've ever worked with. Now, approximately 50% of the domestic PhD students come from 54 institutes, top 54 institutes in the country, and the rest 50% come from the more than 700 institutions. Clearly, Rutgers-Camden is in the larger partition, right? But we have done pretty well in the last, 10 to 15 years. We have students going to some of the schools for graduate studies. Two have won the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship, and some have even won the Undergraduate Research Award. I have also been working with high school students a lot since 2009. It all started with me going to a local high school in 2009, giving a talk, And at the end of the talk, I don't know what happened. I just wrote, if anybody wants to study with me, I'll be there in my office on Saturday. You can come at 10 a.m. Quite surprisingly, 4 students showed up saying that you invited us, so we are here. I worked with 4 students. They went back, they told their friends, hey, we had fun. 4 became 8. Eventually, it became 15. I started working with them. At sometime in January, so I started working with them in September. Sometime in January, I get an email from Sean Lowen. So during the class, I just briefly mentioned, I said, oh, if anybody wants to spend the summer with me, I'll be happy to, or something like that. It was a tongue-in-cheek remark. I didn't mean it seriously, but I got this email. Rajiv, you mentioned today, if you were interested, we could possibly do some work with you over the summer. I just talked to Andrew Wynn about it, and we are both very interested. I'm not sure what my schedule will be for the summer, but I'm sure I could make time to work with you. So this is how I started the summer program in theoretical computer science, now called the program in algorithmic and computational thinking. Let me fast forward. So summer 2010 was the first summer I worked after I received that email. We had 12 students, 15 from during the year had become 12. And summer 2022, we had 180 students. 150 were middle to high school students studying math foundation. 30 students were studying advanced algorithms. This program, where pre-pandemic was being hosted at Princeton. The first version was held at Rutgers-Camden, and then I was invited to come to Princeton, and the computer science department very kindly were willing to host the program. Since pandemic, it has been virtual. We have had representations from various countries in the world, including African countries and India, China, Korea, Austria, and so on. So my high school students have done very well. They have done good research. The whole point was to take them very quick into so that they can start research in some area. So this is a feedback that I received from one of my colleagues at another school with whom my high school student worked with. Today was Mike's last day working with me, and I want to thank you most sincerely for recommending him to me. He's amazing. He's incredibly smart, well-prepared, and tenacious about working on hard problems without giving up. He's also very nice. He contributed significantly to a number of very nice results and has some very impressive results that he came up with entirely independently. I also get this email. This is a quick note of thanks sent with Shield's permission for introducing us and encouraging me to find a way to let him take my majors only programming languages course this fall. Being a large institution with unmeetable demand for our courses, we rarely allow such exceptions, but I took the chance for Shield, and as it turns out, one other first-term freshman as well. Shield ended up with the highest grade in the course, basically tied with 2 other students in the class of 75 students. He received 100% on the final exam, which no other student did, and of course, he was a delight to have participated. Shield is surely special, but it's also great evidence that those of us trying to manage large organizations and enterprises do need to be mindful of the value of making exceptions. To me, this is the most critical line in the entire email. So let me give you some background. Shield was a student whom I worked in high school. When he was in grade 10, his dad approached me, and this is when I was visiting India. And his dad told me that the teachers are concerned about Shield, and they think that he's not doing well academically and he's facing challenges. And they said, what do you recommend I do? And I had the same answer for him, partly because I had worked with Shield a bit and I thought he was just fine. And I told this Shield's dad, take him out of school. And he said, okay, I'll talk to my wife and then we'll see. And a few days later, he calls me again and he said, shall we meet? And he told me Shield is out of school. And he never went to school after that, finished a few years in India. He remotely took courses at Penn with me and with others. He studied on his own the courses, introductory sequence at Princeton and so on. And this was an email from University of Washington. I asked Shield's dad afterwards, I said, why did you listen to me and take him out of school? And, His dad was very smart. He's a physician. And he told me, he said, look, at that time, my wife and I had run out of options. We did not know what to do. We didn't know whether what you saying would make sense or not. But what we say, let's give Gandhi 1 year. He said, if it doesn't work, we come back again and put him in school. What do we lose? We lose 1 year. Right now, we don't have direction anyways. So I just thought that was a very smart way of calculating, saying, look, what is the risk to reward ratio, right? And, you know, Sheila has done very well. He's currently pursuing his PhD at UC Berkeley. This is another super interesting case. So this is an email that I got from a student. I decided not to go for it after a lot of thought. And I'll tell you what she's trying to say. I thought 4 years was a lot of, okay, so she has already put it out. Okay. I thought 4 years was a lot of time to spend to get a high school degree, whereas I'm learning and doing a lot of things I love right now. I'm currently taking a theory of computation class at Euler Circle. We'll be starting a physics course at AOPS, and we'll also be auditing an advanced linear algebra course at ICER in Pune under the guidance of Dr. Bhagwan. I have been reading up communication complexity from the lecture notes from IMSC and CMI. I'm having a lot of fun and learning new things. This is an email written by a 15-year-old from India who got a full scholarship to study in Singapore at one of the top high schools. Now, you know, like any teenager, you know, I would think, oh, you know what, I'm getting to go abroad and completely paid. Just that would be an attraction to that person. But this student has maturity far, far beyond her years. And she wrote to me that, you know, I'm turning down that offer. I'm just very happy doing whatever I'm doing. At one time, I asked the student, I said, you know, I want to introduce you. And so I'll say that you are such and such and you're homeschooled. And she said, no, sir, I'm not homeschooled. I'm unschooled. I had no idea that such a word existed. And she said, look it up. He said, there is a word called unschooled, and I call myself unschooled because I do whatever I want. Homeschooled, still, there is some things that you have to do. He said, she said, here, I do whatever I want. And she's now going to audit my course at, in fact, she has started auditing my course at Penn that I'm teaching. I got this email about 3 weeks ago from, again, a student in India from a small town. Hello, professor, just wanted to share some updates. I got into Cornell University's College of Engineering. This decision was released yesterday, but I was waiting on the financial aid information before sharing the news. And just now I found out that I've received the Tata Scholarship covering all of the tuition, housing, dining, and some miscellaneous costs, and so on and on. Again, to give you some background, I had never met this student personally, but you know, the student was part of the summer program that I run. I met him in 2020. Pandemic had hit. I remember getting an email from his dad saying that he had lost his job and was not getting paid. We supported him. And at that time, I didn't know what was going to happen. All I knew was the student was doing well. We took baby steps, and now we have crossed the finish line. I mean, I should say the starting line of his career, but for us, you know, he's now on his way to building a great career. I also get emails such as this. This is from a 9th grader from Bangalore, India. I'm not sure if I'll be able to give you, so I told him that. I'm not sure if I'll be able to give you an exam. You must prepare as though your exam is on Friday. Let me give you the background of this. So my course is CI 1600 at Penn. This 9th grader was auditing the course from India. And, you know, I gave him the first 2 exams as an auditor. But the final exam, the policy was that we don't want to release the final exam. We don't even give it back to the pension. So we thought, okay, I told him, you know what, you have learned enough. There's no final exam for you. But I just want to show you the motivation of this 9th grader. He writes to me, if it is possible for you to give the exam only in Mumbai or Pune, then I will fly down to Mumbai or Pune just to take the final exam. Right? This is a student who gets no credit for the course, wants to fly to another city just to take a 2-hour final exam. To me, what I have realized is that the joy of learning without the sword of grades hanging over your head is just amazing. And, you know, in a way, it should not be surprising, but these are the things that again validate those points. The third group of students that I work with is students in India. It all started with my Fulbright fellowship in from January to June in 2011. So let me give you some background. So whenever I used to go to Mumbai, I would take a bag full of books to donate there to some local college, and also to just give a talk there as to what if anybody was interested, I can help them. I had told one institute that I'll give a talk, but like many things happen in India, the word had not spread. But just the night before, an email goes saying that, oh, Professor Gandhi is coming. We need some bodies in the room because otherwise, it won't look good. And, and so that's how one student finds out. And he thought that, okay, he has nothing else to do, so he will just go to the room. And he was, in India there are many close friends, so he and his group of 4 friends came. And that's when the teacher told them, go and find some more students. So so he went outside and he got maybe a few more. So there were about 7-8 students in the class. It was a 1-hour lecture. I taught for 1 hour, and then the students were still there eagerly waiting. I said, oh, do you want me to continue teaching? And the faculty said no, but the student said yes. So I started continuing, and I taught for another hour or so. Now, what is interesting is the following, and this is called hunger, right? So they realized, so they enjoyed the lectures. I enjoyed the lecture, but now the faculty said, oh, we should have tea together. I said, okay, fine. So, just to be courteous, so I went, we had tea. Now the students wanted to talk to me, but, it's not as easy to talk as in US. So, the student wanted to talk to me. Then they realized, they said, where will Gandhi leave the college by? They said, this is the entrance that he will leave by. That was the only entrance. They waited at that entrance all the time, right? These 4 students just waited at that entrance. When I came out, they came to me and they said, sir, we would like to learn more from you. And I said, look, I'm here only for 15 days. They said, whenever you tell us, we also have holidays, we'll learn. I started invited them to my home, and we started studying them. Now I kept in touch with them after I came back to US, and seeing their motivation, I thought I should apply for a Fulbright fellowship, which would allow me to go to India and work with them. So I went to Mumbai University, and I taught there. I made it very clear in my Fulbright, I had no interest in teaching at IIT or something, because they already had people to teach them. I wanted to go at a non-elite institution. It was a very satisfying experience. I taught, that is where in a 70-room class, there'll be 150 students. The fan is making noise. There are mice running everywhere. But the thing is, it was still fun to work with the students. And again, from those institutes, hardly any student used to go to PhD. Manish Purohit started his PhD at Maryland in 2011. Since then, probably close to 50 students are now in PhD program. 3, for example, are now faculty. Amey Bhangale at UC Riverside, Karthik Nayak at Duke, and Keval Vora at Simon Fraser. And many of them are at research labs and so on. So, people tell me what are the takeaways. So a few things that at least I have learned from my experiences are, opportunities are everywhere, right? Opportunities don't only come as what people typically think. Oh, if I got into a brand name company of my choice, that is the best opportunity. I don't believe that. To me, the best college that I could have been is Rutgers-Camden, because that is where I could make a difference. That is where I get the maximum satisfaction. And I wouldn't give up my experience at Rutgers-Camden for anything else in the world. So, to me, Rutgers-Camden at the time I accepted it was the lowest paying offer, was not working out well. It is just something I took because it was the best thing that was working out for the family, but it just worked out for my career as well. When I started working with high school students, I was told that this is not going to get you tenure. Do not work with high school students. I continued working because that is what gave me joy. The high school program, working with high school students, is the big part of my life now. Then another thing I have learned is depth first versus breadth first approach. So if you look at most undergraduate students, they take freshman courses, then sophomore courses, then junior courses, then senior courses. What happens is a lot of the interesting material, which is at senior level, they take it either in the junior or senior year. To me, going deep first, that is quickly finish some prereqs so you can take a senior level course in your sophomore year or earlier, will help you get into research in some area. Then you can finish the other thing. This was critical for Rutgers-Camden because that is what allowed me to expose the students to the world and say, my students have done good research. And that is what now I employ with high school. So I do the same approach with high school students. I take them very quickly from just an algebra that they have learned to high school within 2 years to a level that they can start research in some area. They may not know a lot about a lot of other things, but they may know a lot about one area, which enables them to get started on research. Role models. I could go up on the top of this building and shout, "Come and work with me. You know, I will help you." It is not as effective. In contrast with giving an example. Brad Greening going for PhD, doing well. Students saw that and they started flocking to me. Before that, I was the same Gandhi, same thing I used to tell them. It was not working as effectively, but that one student whose life we could make a difference or a small difference helped inspire many others. Strong work ethic. What I realized was that what I initially thought was brutal on the students of giving 2 homeworks a week, that is a homework every class, had worked magic because it taught them how to work hard. My students at Camden know how to work hard at a 7-Eleven or a Wawa, but they didn't know how to academically work hard, how to study. This is the course that taught them. And finally, what I've learned, we all need to give people a chance. Our society is very quick at writing of people who are 17 years old, who don't have a strong transcript and say, "Oh, this student is no good," or "This student is good." You know, look, people blossom again, this is not something I knew. I did not have a strong vision. I just went by what I thought was the right thing to do, or what I would say kept me happy, and I did that. But what I saw, that people blossom at different ages, right? Some people may blossom at 17, some at 21, some at 25. We just need to give people a chance. Finally, this is a quote that one of the high school students, I believe in 2012 or something, wrote in their essay for the summer program that I run. And it resonated with me because this is what is the premise on which my work is based. Ordinary people, when given a chance, can perform extraordinary tasks, by Julian Sitt from New York. And finally, thank you very much for listening.
Are there any questions?
So is there a time when you have said, okay, your success is my success and it hasn't worked out for you? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it has worked out. So this is what happens when you think, look, this student is pretty amazing and I want to help them. And I remember working with a student. She was probably one of the finest students, I worked with. I worked with her for about 6 months or 8 months, and it didn't work out for various reasons on which I didn't have control. But, at that time, you just have to, just say, hopefully there'll be somebody else to inspire them. You try your best, but it is not always going to go. It may not always work out.
I'll ask a question. So your idea of doing the depth first versus breadth first, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that too much, but I can see where it'd be very useful in certain cases. Do you think it might be specific to computer science? Because there is a possibility of getting deeply into a problem without a lot of extra things. Like in math, for example, it really takes a while to develop that breadth that you need to really dive in deeply into something. So I'm just wondering, do you think this would be transferable to other disciplines as well?
That's an excellent question, and I don't think I have the expertise to say that. But in computer science, yes, it is possible, and I've done that. Basically, I think, again, I don't know whether this translates to other areas, but all I did was identify a few areas that I can teach a student and just bring them up to the speed where they can do meaningful research. But I do agree with you there that it may not be that transferable to maybe an area, and area like mathematics. Computer science is a young field.
Yeah.
So maybe it may be possible.
Be interesting to try. Sounds like a good proposal to NSF.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, let's thank Rajiv again for